The paintwork of the Ford Explorer 5 is not of the best quality, swells, especially on cars assembled in Russia. Because of this, on many copies, after 3-5 years of operation, repainting of some elements is required. Most often, the problem comprehends the lower edges of the doors and the hood. Despite the fact that the metal elements of the body are completely galvanized, it is not worth leaving the chipped areas unattended for a long time, since rust quickly appears on the open areas of the metal. There are complaints from the owners about the insufficiently rigid body structure. If you put the car with only one wheel on the curb, a slight distortion occurs in the opening of the fifth door. Because of this, the trunk electric drive stops working. The first limited is activated. Due to poor fit of body parts, they stand close. While driving, they rub against each other, thereby damaging the paintwork. On many copies of the Russian assembly, low-quality sealant is used. Because of this, the roof begins to leak over time. It is worth noting that in most cases, after fixing the problem, the roof has to be repainted. Also, the cause of the appearance of moisture in the cabin can be a clogged drainage of the panoramic roof. The presence of water in the trunk indicates that the junction of the roof and the rear panel of the body is not tight. Due to poor sealing of the seams, after a couple of years of operation, the optics begin to sweat. The disadvantages include the poor quality of the regular lights of the front optics. Not only are the headlights small and of poor quality diffuser, they are also located too high above and do not illuminate it properly. There are also complaints about the fog lights installed in the bumper. They sweat, crack, and pop out of their seats. It is also worth noting the high cost of buying a new PDF. On the cars of the first years of production, there was a problem with the rear door seals, which led to dust and dirt flying into the passenger compartment while driving. After 2012, the problem was fixed. There are also complaints about regular windshield wipers. Some owners note that at speed, they do not cope well with the task assigned to them. Also, the battery can be attributed to weak points. It needs to be replaced after 3-4 years of operation. Ford Explorer 5 was equipped only with gasoline power units, atmospheric Duratec T-VCT V6 with a volume of 3.5 liters, 249 and 295 horsepower, and turbocharged EcoBoost 2.0, 240 horsepower and 3.5, 345 horsepower. The vast majority of the presented cars of this model in the secondary market are equipped with an atmospheric engine. This unit has good driving characteristics and acceptable reliability. A reliable metal chain works in the time drive, the average resource of which is about 250,000 kilometers, but its tensioner may be asked to be replaced after the first 100,000 kilometers. An unpleasant metallic ringing when starting a cold engine will tell you about the presence of problems with the tensioner. Despite the fact that this engine digests 90-second gasoline without problems, its equipment is quite sensitive to fuel quality. So, for example, when refueling with surrogate, lambda probes may start to fail. Because of this, an engine error check appears on the instrument panel. Also, the appearance of an error can be caused by severe contamination of the throttle assembly or injectors. The problem is solved by cleaning. On cars of recent years, the coolant pump is driven by the timing chain and not by a separate belt as it was before. On the one hand, this is good, since the cost of maintenance has decreased. On the other hand, it is bad, because as a result of severe destruction of the support shafts and pump bearings, the center of the intermediate timing gear may shift, which will lead to a collision of pistons with valves. Pump resource 120–150,000 kilometers. At sub-zero temperatures, during engine warm-up, idle speed may rise, and after restarting the engine, they take on the usual values. To eliminate the drawback, you must contact the dealer to reset the errors, but as practice has shown, the next frost may repeat the trouble. On Russian assembled cars, there have been cases of antifreeze leaks from the engine. The reason is the poor quality of the pipe clamps. Quite rarely, but still, there are cases of early failure of the left engine support cushion. Due to the characteristics of the ignition coils and spark plugs, the engine may triple. Timely replacement of all these components will help to avoid the appearance of a problem. Otherwise, the motor is reliable and with proper maintenance will last 300–350,000 kilometers without critical breakdowns. Transmission. Paired with motors, only a 6-speed automatic with manual shifting was installed. There is nothing special to talk about this gearbox. It is reliable and with proper maintenance for a long time, up to 250,000 kilometers, will not bother with breakdowns. Of the operational features of used copies, one can only note jerks when switching and excessive thoughtfulness. Fortunately, in most cases, the throttle can be eliminated after updating the software in the gearbox control unit. It is worth noting that the machine is self-learning, and after a few traffic jams, it starts to work as it is convenient for it. Of the weak points, one can single out the unreliability of the seals, they flow. But the all-wheel drive system, implemented using the Hendrix coupling, can bring a lot of surprises and disappointments, especially if you try to operate the car as a full-fledged CUV. The main problem of the all-wheel drive transmission is the unreliability of the transfer case, which may be asked for a replacement without having served even 50,000 kilometers. The problem, as a rule, begins with the appearance of an oil leak through the cover or seals. If this is not followed, the oil level in the box will drop to a critical minimum and provoke accelerated wear of its parts. On a Russian-assembled car, problems with a razdatka are often caused by underfilling or overfilling oil from the factory. Also, the reason for the early failure of the transfer case is aggressive operation, frequent slippage, traffic lights races, etc., and overheating. If there are problems with the transfer case, extraneous sounds appear while driving. Despite the fact that the transfer case is considered maintenance-free every 30–40,000 kilometers, it is recommended to change the oil in it, as this will significantly extend its service life. Another problematic place is the electronics of the all-wheel drive system, which eventually begins to fail. An error pops up in the system, modules do not switch. Often, restarting the car is enough to fix the problem. As for the reliability of the clutch itself, there are no particular complaints about it. The advantage of this clutch is that it is well protected from overheating by electronics and simply turns off in case of danger. The Ford Explorer 5 uses an energy-intensive independent suspension, well adapted for off-road driving. However, the car still goes through small bumps harshly. Despite the impressive size, the car has a fairly good handling. As for the reliability of the suspension, there are a couple of weak points worth noting here. In addition to the weak front stabilizer struts 20–30,000 kilometers go, shock absorber support bearings also have a rather small resource, about 50,000 kilometers. Like many modern cars, the stabilizer struts also last for a short time, they can withstand about 60,000 kilometers. Due to the fact that the bushings are replaced as an assembly with a stabilizer, replacing them is quite expensive, $150 to $100. Native front shock absorbers, ball bearings change with the lever, and wheel bearings are rented out at a range of 100–120,000 kilometers. The rest of the original suspension consumables, as a rule, can withstand up to 150,000 kilometers of run. The steering system uses a rack and pinion mechanism with electric power steering. The weak point here is the rack and tie rods, they often need to be replaced, having served only 30–50,000 kilometers. Often the culprit for the early failure of the mechanism is weak anther clamps through which moisture and dirt enter the rail, which provokes the appearance of corrosion in it. In configurations with parking systems, electronics often fail. The cost of replacing the rack will be an unpleasant surprise even for a wealthy car owner, from $1,000. You can extend the life of the rail by replacing the original anthers mount with a better analog. Check the condition of the rail is quite simple. Move the cuffs. If traces of rust are visible, the rail will soon have to be changed. Ford Explorer brakes, for a technical point of view, are reliable, but from an operational point of view, they are not. The fact is that regular brake discs are not designed for such a large mass of the car, which is why it is not possible to stop this gained at high speed immediately. In addition, discs tend to overheat quickly. Salon. Despite the considerable cost of the Ford Explorer 5, in the USA it belongs to the relatively budget CUV class, which is probably the reason for saving on materials. Among the shortcomings of the interior, in addition to the presence of hard and explosive plastic, poor assembly quality can be noted, especially for Russian-assembled cars, and weak front seats that lose their original shape after 2–3 years of operation. It is also worth noting separately the low quality of the leather trim of the seats, armrests cracking, and the steering wheel rubbed and looks sloppy. Things are not much better with the reliability of electrical equipment. The touch panel for controlling the multimedia system and interior equipment received the most criticism, poor responsiveness to pressing. Also, the electronic blind of the panoramic roof can be attributed to the weak points. The reason for the failure is banal, an insufficient amount of lubrication. Up to 100,000 km, on many instances, the climate control damper drive fails. The part itself is not very expensive, but to replace it, you will have to disassemble a third of the cabin. The rear view camera is also quite vulnerable. The contact group is oxidized, which after replacement must be registered in the system. Various intelligent systems, of which there are quite a lot in this car, can also fail. Fortunately, in most cases, it is possible to restore their performance by simply turning off the ignition for a few seconds. Ford Explorer 5 was created for people who know how to count money and are not ready to pay only for the image of the brand, but choose a car for comfort, functionality, and reliability. In addition to its dimensions and interior space, this model boasts a fairly large list of equipment, and some of them, for example, electric folding third-row seats, are not available for any of the direct competitors. As for the reliability of the car, in general, with proper maintenance it does not cause any global problems. If you are the owner of this car model, please describe the problems that you had to face during the operation of the car. Perhaps it is your review that will help readers of our site when choosing a car.